So essentially, there are three ways that you could write about information from your sources in your paper, in your research reports, speeches, essays, whatever it might be. And, of course, that's paraphrasing, quoting, and summarizing. I like these little guys here. A little open a quote, close a quote. And whatever goes within these quotation marks, you open a quote, double quotation marks, and then put verbatim whatever it is that you're taking from the source, and then close it out correctly. And it's not a thing, it's where you want to be super accurate. You don't want to like, okay, yeah, I think it said this, because not only do we open the quote and close the quote to show the reader how we're using our sources and the extent to which we're going to use our sources, but it also kind of gives us more to, what was I going to say? Sorry, lost my train of thought. We also want to make sure that some folks think that, okay, whenever we quote, that's when I cite a source, right? Well, yeah, certainly. But you also cite a source for paraphrasing and for summarizing. And some folks get confused on this. Because with paraphrasing, you still have to give credit, even if you're putting it into your own words, you have to give credit to the author that gave you those ideas. And my best example for this, whether it's summarizing or paraphrasing, because some folks have trouble with this, is if I'm talking about Einstein. If you were writing a paper about Albert Einstein, and you have to write a paragraph or two or three, and just kind of give a light explanation of the theory of relativity. I mean, you could include a one or two line quote from Einstein, but if you're trying to lead into this and talk about it in your own words, you can see that you couldn't take credit for those ideas, could you? You'd have to, even if you paraphrased, put it in your own words, a nice little explanation of Einstein's theory of relativity. It's his, for sure. So that seems to be the examples that when I give that, students seem to be able to understand more about, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. So it doesn't matter if it's the theory of relativity from Einstein that you're paraphrasing. Of course, you should cite him for it. Or it could be Joe the plumber's ideas on gardening. If you got his ideas of gardening from his little article, even if you're changing the words, you need to give Joe the gardener credit. And that's just the ethical obligations of research. So here again, paraphrasing is using your own words to convey the meaning of a passage from a source. Changing the source's words into your own language or text. Text meaning words strung together to make phrases and clauses and sentences. You're essentially translating the original text into your own words, not the author's words. And I do apologize a little bit for maybe that seeming redundant, but I want to hit hard the idea that it's your words, not the source's words. And that some people say, oh, it's like they will say, well, I changed 2 or 3 words in that line. Well, we need to change a little bit more than 2 or 3 words. It should sound like you. We often talk about writer's voice and what that is. Writer's voice is sort of we get some attitude of what the speaker's voice, even if we're reading something that somebody has written, there's a writer's voice behind it. And if you cling too tightly to the source's versions of things when you're paraphrasing, then at the end of your paper, you're going to sound like this author on this page and this other author on another page. And so you have to make these transitions, I guess you'd say. Put it into, it should sound like you speaking, but maybe the academic version of you, okay? And another thing, what was I going to say? Oh, another thing related to that same thing is that it's sort of a bonus when you're paraphrasing well. We have a problem sometimes with papers that students become inconsistent in point of view. Person, place, or person and tense, for instance. Maybe you're in present tense, maybe you're in past tense. Are you using first person or third person? And then you'll look at this article, and they're using second person, present tense. And this other article is talking in first person, past tense. And then another one may be using third person, present perfect tense. And so if you start borrowing too many of the word forms, the word clusters, especially like precise verbs, for instance, and incorporating them, then pretty soon you've got a problem with your mixing the person and the point of view up. Because a point of view is almost like a choice, a machine created or fashioned by the writer to establish some sort of machine that will kind of be the narrator. So a lot of that is shaped by the decisions of the writer. And so if we start out and say, okay, I'm going to use third person present tense, and then suddenly we get in a paragraph, and when we've borrowed too many of the source's words and he's using second person, then all of a sudden we've created tense switches, person switches, mixed or ambiguous persona and point of view in our piece. So that's another reason to stay in your own voice and make those transitions.